Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the space station grow larger on the screen. The Terra's Hope was not a big ship, but it was fast and reliable. Jake had been flying through space for 15 years, and he knew his ship like he knew his own hands. "Captain, we're getting permission to dock," said his communications officer, Pete Wilson. The young man had only been with the crew for 6 months, but he was good at his job. "Take us in nice and slow," Jake told his pilot, Nancy Clark. She nodded and began the docking process. Jake could feel the slight vibration as the ship connected to Kepler Station. Kepler Station was huge. It floated in orbit around a planet that humans had discovered 5 years ago. The station was like a small city in space, with shops, restaurants, and meeting rooms where different alien species could do business together. The Galactic Commerce Treaty said that all species could trade here peacefully. Dr. Lisa Grant came onto the bridge carrying a small metal case. She was the ship's doctor and scientist. Lisa was smart and brave, and Jake trusted her completely. The case she carried was very important. "The vaccines are ready," Lisa said. 10,000 doses that could save millions of lives on the Zephyrian colonies. Jake nodded. The Zephyrians were a peaceful alien race that looked like tall, thin humans with blue skin. A terrible disease was killing them, and their own doctors could not find a cure. Human scientists had worked for months to create these vaccines. "How long do you need on the station?" Jake asked. "Just 2 hours. I need to meet with the Zephyrian medical team and show them how to use the vaccines properly," Lisa replied. "Take Ben and Tony with you," Jake said. Lieutenant Ben Carter was young but smart, and Tony Martinez was an experienced security officer. "I don't like the look of some of the ships docked here." Lisa looked through the window at the other ships connected to the station. Most were small trading vessels, but there were also 3 large gray warships that belonged to the Hegemony. The Hegemony was a military alliance of reptilian aliens who thought they were better than everyone else. "I'll be careful," Lisa promised. An hour later, Lisa walked through the station's corridors with Ben and Tony beside her. The station was busy with traders from many different worlds. She saw the small, furry Kepler merchants selling their famous spices. A group of tall, elegant Centaurians discussed art near a fountain. Everything seemed normal and peaceful. The medical bay was in the station's central section. As they approached, Lisa noticed several Hegemony soldiers standing near the entrance. They were tall reptiles with green scales and cold yellow eyes. Each one carried an energy weapon. "Dr. Grant?" A voice called her name. She turned and saw a Hegemony officer walking toward her. His uniform had many medals, and his scales were darker than the others. "I am Commander Vexstar. I understand you have medical supplies for the Zephyrian colonies." "Yes, that's correct," Lisa said politely. "We're delivering vaccines to help stop the plague." Vexstar's thin lips pulled back to show sharp teeth. "The Hegemony has decided that all medical aid to the outer colonies should go through our distribution centers first. This ensures proper quality control." Lisa felt her heart beat faster. "I'm sorry, but these vaccines were made specifically for the Zephyrians. They're expecting us." "What you want does not matter," Vexstar said. His voice was cold and hard. "The Hegemony is responsible for security in this sector. All medical supplies must be inspected by our scientists." Ben stepped forward. The young lieutenant's hand moved closer to his weapon. "Sir, we have proper documentation for this delivery. The Galactic Commerce Treaty guarantees free passage for humanitarian aid." Vexstar looked at Ben like he was looking at an insect. "Humans, you think your little treaties protect you. You think you are important." He laughed, a harsh sound that made other people in the corridor stop and stare. "The vaccines stay with us," Lisa said firmly. "They need to be kept at a specific temperature, and only I know how to prepare them properly." You will give us the vaccines now, Vextar ordered, or we will take them. Tony Martinez moved to stand next to Ben. Both human officers were ready to fight, but they were greatly outnumbered. More hegemony soldiers had appeared from side corridors. Station security was nowhere to be seen. This is theft, Lisa said loudly, hoping other aliens would hear. You're stealing medicine from dying people. Vextar moved faster than anyone expected. His clawed hand struck Lisa across the face, knocking her to the ground. The metal case, with the vaccines skittered across the floor. Ben Carter did not think about the odds. He did not think about how many enemy soldiers surrounded them. He only thought about protecting Dr. Grant. The young lieutenant drew his weapon and pointed it at Vextar. Get away from her, Ben shouted. Vextar smiled his terrible smile. Foolish human. He pulled out his own weapon, a sleek energy rifle that hummed with power. You think you can threaten me? The energy blast hit Ben in the chest and threw him backward. He hit the wall hard and slid to the floor. Lisa screamed and crawled toward him, but hegemony soldiers grabbed her arms and pulled her away. The vaccines are now hegemony property, Vextar announced to everyone watching. These humans are under arrest for threatening a hegemony officer. As the soldiers dragged Lisa and Tony toward the detention cells, she could see Ben lying very still on the floor. Blood was spreading beneath him, and she did not know if he was alive or dead. On the Terra's Hope, Jake Morrison felt something was wrong before Pete Wilson's voice crackled over the communication system. Captain, we've lost contact with the away team. Station security says there was an incident in the medical bay. Jake's jaw tightened. He had been flying through space long enough to know what incident usually meant. Get me a visual on the docking bay. Now. The screen showed hegemony soldiers loading a metal case onto one of their shuttles. Jake recognized the case immediately. Sir, 3 hegemony warships are moving to surround us, Nancy Clark reported from the pilot's seat. They're targeting our engines. Jake looked at the odds. His small research ship against 3 military warships. He could not win a fight, but he could make sure Earth Command learned what had happened here. Send a coded message to Admiral Hayes, Jake ordered. Tell her that the hegemony has attacked our people and stolen humanitarian supplies. Then tell her this. He paused, thinking about Ben Carter's young face and Lisa Grant's dedication to saving lives. Tell her that they crossed a line. Tell her that no one crosses a human and walks away unscathed. Message sent, Captain, Pete confirmed. Jake watched the hegemony ships escort his people away. He had to retreat now, but this was not over. Not by a long shot. The hegemony had made a mistake. They thought humans were weak because they preferred peace and diplomacy. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Admiral Patricia Hayes read the message from Jake Morrison 3 times before she fully understood what had happened. She sat in her office on Earth, looking out at the blue oceans and white clouds of humanity's home world. The message made her angry in a way she had not felt for many years. She pressed a button on her desk. Get me an emergency meeting with the Terran Defense Council. Everyone needs to be there in 2 hours. Patricia had been protecting human interests in space for 25 years. She had fought pirates, negotiated with alien governments, and kept the peace in dozens of star systems. But she had never seen anything like this. The hegemony had attacked humans who were trying to save lives. They had stolen medicine from dying people. This could not be allowed to stand. 2 hours later, the most important military leaders of Earth sat around a large table. Admiral Hayes stood at the front of the room with Jake Morrison's message displayed on a large screen. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a problem, she began. The hegemony has attacked our people during a humanitarian mission. They have stolen vaccines that could save millions of Zephyrian lives. Our people are prisoners, and one of our officers may be dying. Colonel, Ryan Brooks leaned forward in his chair. He was the head of Special Operations, a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes. Ryan had led dangerous missions throughout the galaxy, and he knew how to get things done. "What do we know about their current location?" Ryan asked. "Intelligence. Reports say the stolen vaccines have been moved to Rigel Prime," Patricia replied. "That's the hegemony's strongest fortress in this sector. Our people are probably being held there too." General Frank Cooper, the head of the Space Marines, shook his head. "Rigel Prime has orbital defense platforms and a full battle fleet. A direct assault would be suicide." "We're not talking about a direct assault," Ryan said quietly. "We're talking about a surgical strike. Get in, get our people, get out. Make the hegemony pay for what they did." Dr. Kevin Walsh spoke up from his seat at the end of the table. Kevin was not a military officer. He was a scientist who studied alien technology for the government. He was thin and pale from spending too much time in laboratories, but his mind was brilliant. "I might have something that could help," Kevin said. "My team has been studying hegemony energy shields for 2 years. We found something interesting. Their shields have a weakness." Admiral Hayes looked interested. "What kind of weakness?" Kevin stood up and walked the display screen. His fingers moved quickly as he brought up technical diagrams. "Hegemony shields work by creating an energy field that deflects weapons. Fire, but the field operates on a specific frequency. If you hit that frequency with the right kind of signal, the shields will overload and shut down." "How long would the shields be down?" Ryan asked. "Maybe 10 minutes if we're lucky. Maybe only 5, Kevin replied. "It would depend on how fast their engineers could restart the system." 10 minutes, Ryan said thoughtfully. "That might be enough time." Captain Sarah Johnson had been quiet during the meeting, but now she spoke up. Sarah was the commander of the Silent Runner, a new type of ship that could become invisible to enemy sensors. She was one of the best pilots in the human fleet. "My ship could get a strike team close to Rigel Prime without being detected," Sarah said. "The experimental cloaking device has been working perfectly in tests." Admiral Hayes looked around the table at each officer. "Are we all in agreement? The hegemony attacked our people during a peaceful mission. They stole humanitarian supplies. They think they can do this because humans prefer diplomacy to war. They're about to learn the difference between preferring peace and being weak," Ryan said grimly. Patricia nodded. "Then we're going to show them what happens when you cross a human. Kevin, I want those frequency modulators ready in 48 hours. Sarah, prepare the Silent Runner for a deep space mission. Ryan, select your best people for the strike team." "What about the diplomatic angle?" asked Ambassador Helen Rogers, who had been listening quietly. Helen was responsible for human relations with alien governments. "If we attack a hegemony fortress, it could start a war." "The hegemony started this when they attacked our medical mission," Patricia replied. "But you're right about diplomacy. I want you to request emergency peace talks with hegemony leadership. Make it look like we're trying to solve this problem." "Through negotiation?" Helen smiled. She was a small woman with gray hair, but she was one of the most skilled negotiators in human space. "I can do that. I'll suggest meeting on Haven Prime. That's neutral territory, and it will take their leadership several days to get there." "Perfect," Patricia said. "That gives us the distraction we need. While their leaders are talking peace, we'll be taking action." Colonel Brooks stood up. "I'll need detailed intelligence on Rigel Prime. Guard rotations, patrol schedules, the layout of their detention facilities. And I want to know exactly where they're keeping our people." "I can help with that," said Captain Morrison's voice from the communication system. Jake had joined the meeting from his ship, which was heading back toward human space. "Jake, what's your status?" Admiral Hayes asked. "The Terra's hope is undamaged, but we had to leave 3 people behind. The hegemony is treating this like a diplomatic incident. They're claiming that Ben Carter threatened their commander and that they were forced to defend themselves. Ryan Brooks made an angry sound. Ben Carter is 23 years old and weighs maybe 160 pounds. Commander Vextar is a trained hegemony warrior with claws and scales. The idea that Ben threatened him is ridiculous. It doesn't matter what really happened, Jake replied. What matters is that our people are prisoners, and the vaccines are in enemy hands. The Zephyrians are still dying while we talk. Admiral Hayes made her decision. Jake, I want you to create a diversion. Take your ship and hit a hegemony supply convoy in the Altair system. Make it look like that's our main response to what happened. Understood, Jake said. How big a diversion do you want? Big enough to get their attention. Small enough that they don't realize it's a diversion. Can you do that? Jake Morrison had been fighting in space for 15 years. He knew how to make a small force look like a big one, and he knew how to disappear when the odds turned against him. I can do that, Jake confirmed. When do you want me to start? 72 hours from now, Patricia replied. That gives us time to get all the pieces in place. After the meeting ended, Admiral Hayes stood alone in her office. She looked out at the stars and thought about Ben Carter, the young lieutenant who had tried to protect Dr. Grant. She thought about Lisa Grant, who had spent months creating vaccines to save alien lives. She thought about the hegemony commander who had attacked them during a humanitarian mission. Patricia. Hayes had spent her whole career trying to keep peace between humans and aliens. She believed in diplomacy and cooperation. But some things could not be solved with words. Her assistant knocked on the door. Admiral, you have a call from the Zephyrian colonies. They want to know what happened to their vaccines. Patricia sighed. The Zephyrians were dying while the hegemony played politics with their medicine. This was not just about human pride anymore. This was about doing what was right. Tell them that their vaccines will be delivered, she said firmly. And tell them that the people who stole their medicine will pay for what they did. As her assistant left, Patricia looked at the star charts on her wall. Rigel Prime was marked with a red dot deep in hegemony space. It was heavily defended and far from human territory. But humans had learned something important during their history on Earth. Sometimes the hardest targets were the ones most worth hitting. Sometimes you had to fight not just to win, but to teach your enemies why they should never have made you fight in the first place. The hegemony thought they knew humans. They were about to discover how wrong they were. 3 days later, Ambassador Helen Rogers sat across from hegemony leaders in a conference room on Haven Prime. The neutral planet was beautiful, with purple skies and crystal mountains that sparkled in the light of twin suns. But Helen was not here to enjoy the scenery. The attack on our medical team was completely unjustified, Helen said calmly. She had practiced this speech many times during the trip to Haven Prime. Humanitarian supplies should never be seized by military forces. Supreme Commander Thakver, the highest-ranking hegemony leader present, showed his sharp teeth in what might have been a smile. His scales were gold and green, marking him as one of the most senior warriors in their society. Your people threatened. A hegemony officer, Thakver replied. We acted in self-defense. The medical supplies are being properly inspected by our scientists. Helen kept her expression neutral, but inside she was furious. She had seen the security footage from Kepler Station. She knew that Commander Vextar had struck Dr. Grant first and that Lieutenant Carter had only drawn his weapon to protect her. We propose that neutral observers inspect the vaccines and oversee their distribution to the Zephyrian colonies, Helen suggested. This would satisfy both our concerns about proper medical procedures and your security requirements. The discussion continued for hours. Helen made reasonable suggestions, and the hegemony leaders found reasons to reject each one. She was not really trying to reach an agreement. Her job was to keep the hegemony leadership busy, while the real mission happened thousands of light years away, far from Haven Prime. The silent runner moved through space like a ghost. Captain Sarah Johnson stood on her ship's bridge, watching the stars ahead. The experimental cloaking device made her ship invisible to almost every type of sensor. Only the most advanced detection systems could find them, and even then, it was difficult. "We're approaching the edge of hegemony space," reported her navigation officer, Lieutenant Danny Kim. "No enemy contacts detected." Sarah nodded. The silent runner was much smaller than a regular warship, but it was fast and quiet. Her crew of 20 specialists had been chosen for this mission because they were the best at what they did. Colonel Ryan Brooks stood next to Sarah, studying a holographic display of Rigel Prime. The hegemony fortress looked like a metal mountain built into an asteroid. Defensive platforms surrounded it, and patrol ships moved in regular patterns through the nearby space. Dr. Walsh's frequency modulators are ready, Ryan reported. "When we get close enough, we can shut down their shields for about 8 minutes. "How close do we need to get?" Sarah asked. "Within 5,000 kilometers. Any farther, and the signal won't be strong enough." Sarah looked at the patrol patterns around Rigel Prime. The hegemony ships moved in predictable routes, but there were a lot of them. Getting close enough to use the frequency modulators would be very dangerous. "There," she said, pointing to a gap in the patrol routes. "We can approach from the asteroid field on the far side. The rocks will help hide us." Meanwhile, in the Altair system, Jake Morrison was preparing his own part of the mission. Itera's Hope hung in space near a large asteroid, hidden from the hegemony supply convoy that would arrive in 2 hours. "Captain, are you sure about this?" asked Pete Wilson. The young communications officer looked nervous. "There are going to be at least 6 enemy ships in that convoy." "7, according to intelligence," Jake replied calmly. "But we're not going to fight all of them at once. We're going to hit them fast, make them think there are more of us than there really are, and then disappear." Nancy Clark worked at her pilot controls, preparing the ship for combat maneuvers. "What if they follow us into the asteroid field? Then we use the asteroids to our advantage," Jake said. "I've been flying through asteroid fields since before you were born. The hegemony pilots haven't." Jake had spent hours studying the convoy routes and the asteroid field. He knew exactly where to position his ship and how to make the attack look like it was coming from multiple directions. The key was to cause enough damage to get the hegemony's attention without getting his ship destroyed. Back at Rigel Prime, the silent runner crept through the asteroid field like a hunting cat. Sarah Johnson guided her ship between floating rocks, the size of buildings, using the asteroids to hide from enemy sensors. "Contact," whispered Lieutenant Kim. "Hegemony patrol ship, bearing 27 Mark IV. They haven't seen us." Sarah watched the enemy ship pass by less than a kilometer away. The hegemony patrol vessel was 3 times the size of the silent runner, with heavy weapons and strong shields. If it detected them, the mission would be over before it started. "We're in position," Ryan Brooks reported quietly. "Beginning scan for the detention facilities." The colonel's team used sensitive equipment to look through the fortress walls. Rigel Prime was huge, with dozens of levels and thousands of rooms. Finding 3 human prisoners would be like finding a needle in a haystack. "Got something," said Sergeant Maria Santos, Ryan's intelligence specialist. "Level 15, Section C, 3 human life signs in what looks like detention cells." "Are they all alive?" Ryan asked. Maria adjusted her equipment. 2 are definitely alive and moving around. The third one... She paused. "The third one is alive but very weak. Probably injured." Ryan felt a cold anger in his chest. That had 2. B. Ben Carter, still suffering from the energy weapon blast that had nearly killed him. The kid had been a prisoner for 4 days with little or no medical care. What about the vaccines? Ryan asked. Laboratory complex on level 22, Maria replied. Heavy security around it. Sarah Johnson checked her instruments. Colonel, we need to move now. The patrol routes are about to shift, and we'll lose our window. Ryan looked at his team. 12 of the best special operations soldiers in human space, armed with the most advanced weapons Earth could provide. They were outnumbered 1,000 to 1, but they had surprise on their side. Remember, this is not a suicide mission, Ryan told his people. We get in, get our people, get the vaccines, and get out. No unnecessary heroics. The soldiers nodded. They all knew the risks, but they also knew why they were here. The hegemony had attacked humans during a peaceful mission. They had stolen medicine from dying aliens. They had to pay for what they did. Activating frequency modulators, reported the ship's engineer, Chief Petty Officer Bob Martinez. Hegemony shields will be down in 30 seconds. Sarah brought the silent runner closer to the fortress. The ship was still invisible, but that would not last long once the shooting started. Transport room. Prepare for emergency beam out. We may need to leave in a hurry. In the Altair system, Jake Morrison watched the Hegemony supply convoy drop out of hyperspace right on schedule. 7 ships, just like intelligence had predicted. 6 cargo vessels protected by 1 heavy cruiser. All hands, battle stations, Jake announced over the ship's communication system. Remember, we're not trying to win this fight. We're trying to make them think we're bigger than we are, and then get out of here. The Terra's Hope launched out of the asteroid field like a striking snake. Jake's first target was not the cruiser, but one of the cargo ships. The research vessel's weapons were not very powerful, but they were accurate. Laser beams and missiles struck the cargo ship's engines, leaving it floating helplessly in space. Unknown vessel, you are attacking Hegemony property, came an angry voice over the radio. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Jake smiled grimly. This is Captain Morrison of the Earth vessel Terra's Hope. You attacked our medical team and stole humanitarian supplies. We're here to return the favor. The Hegemony cruiser turned toward Jake's ship, but the Terra's Hope was already moving. Nancy Clark flew the ship in a complex pattern through the asteroid field. Using the floating rocks as cover dot at Rigel Prime, the frequency modulators did their work perfectly. The fortress's energy shields flickered and died, leaving the massive structure temporarily defenseless. Launching assault shuttles, Ryan Brooks announced. All teams, go, go, go. 4 small shuttles shot out of the Silent Runner's launch bay and raced toward different parts of the fortress. Ryan's team headed for the detention level, while other squads went after the vaccines and the communication center got. The fortress's defenders realized they were under attack when the first shuttle punched through the hull on level 15. Emergency. Alarms began to sound throughout the massive structure. Human raiders. Someone was shouting in the Hegemony language over their communication channels. All security teams to level 15. Ryan Brooks and his soldiers moved through the fortress corridors like professionals. They had studied the layout for days, and they knew exactly where to go. Hegemony soldiers rushed to stop them, but the humans were faster and better trained. Found them, called Sergeant Santos as she reached the detention cells. 3 humans, all alive. Ryan saw Dr. Lisa Grant and Security Officer Tony Martinez in the first 2 cells. Both looked tired and angry, but they were not seriously hurt. In the 3rd cell, Lieutenant Ben Carter lay on a metal bed. He was very pale, and Ryan could see that he had been badly injured. Can he be moved? Ryan asked Lisa as Santos unlocked the cell doors. He needs medical attention immediately, Lisa replied. But yes, we can move him if we're careful. Good, let's go home. The rescue was going well until Ryan Brooks and his team reached the fortress courtyard with their rescued prisoners. They had Ben Carter on a medical stretcher, with Lisa Grant running alongside to monitor his condition. Tony Martinez was walking on his own, carrying one of the cases of recovered vaccines. Then everything went wrong at once. Commander Vextar was waiting for them in the courtyard with 50 hegemony heavy assault troops. The reptilian commander's yellow eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he saw the humans walking into his trap. "Did you really think we would not notice your little rescue attempt?" Vextar called out across the open space. "We detected your ship the moment it entered our system. These primitive humans and their foolish technology." Ryan looked around quickly. His team was trapped in the middle of the courtyard with high walls on all sides. The only way out was through Vextar's soldiers, and they were badly outnumbered. "Surrender now, and we will kill you quickly," Vextar continued. "Continue to resist, and you will die very slowly." Sergeant Santos whispered into her radio. "Silent Runner, this is ground team. We need immediate extraction. Heavy resistance at the landing zone." Captain Sarah Johnson's voice crackled back over the communication system. "Ground team, the fortress shields are back online. I can't get close enough for transport." Ryan looked at his soldiers. They were good people, the best Earth had to offer. But even the best soldiers could not fight 50-1 odds and win. At least, not using normal tactics. That was when Lisa Grant did something that reminded everyone why humans were so dangerous. She was not a soldier, but she was brilliant, and she refused to give up. "Ryan, give me 2 minutes," Lisa said quietly. She opened her medical bag and began mixing chemicals from several different containers. "What are you doing?" Ryan asked, keeping his eyes on the hegemony soldiers who were slowly advancing across the courtyard. "The vaccines contain chemicals that affect hegemony nervous systems," Lisa explained as she worked. "If I can create an aerosol version and get it into the air circulation system, it will knock them out without killing them," Ryan finished. He understood immediately. "How long do you need?" 2 minutes to mix it. Maybe 30 seconds for it to spread through the air system." Ryan looked at his watch. The fortress shields would be down for maybe 3 more minutes before the engineers could restart them. After that, the Silent Runner would not be able to help them at all. "All right, people, we hold this position for 3 minutes," Ryan announced to his team. "Whatever it takes." The first hegemony soldiers reached the center of the courtyard. Ryan's people opened fire with their advanced human weapons. The energy beams were brighter and more accurate than anything the hegemony had seen before. But there were too many enemies. For every hegemony soldier that fell, 2 more took his place. Ryan's team was running out of ammunition, and the enemy was getting closer. 30 seconds, Lisa called out as she finished mixing her improvised chemical weapon. That was when Sarah Johnson made a decision that violated every rule in the military handbook. She brought the Silent Runner down into the planet's atmosphere, using the cloaking device to hide the ship from the fortress's defensive guns. "All hands, hold on," Sarah announced over the ship's communication system. "This is going to be rough." The Silent Runner was not designed to fly in planetary atmospheres. It was a spaceship built for the vacuum between stars. But Sarah was one of the best pilots in the human fleet, and she was not going to abandon Ryan's team. The ship dropped through Rachel Prime's atmosphere like a falling meteor. The hull plates glowed red-hot from the friction, and the engines screamed with the effort of keeping the ship airborne. "Captain, we're showing stress fractures in the main hull," reported Chief Martinez from the engine room. "This ship is not built for atmospheric flight. Just hold together for 5 more minutes," Sarah replied through gritted teeth. On the fortress courtyard, the battle was not going well for the humans. Ryan's team was down to their last few shots, and the hegemony soldiers were only 20 meters away. Then Lisa Grant's chemical weapon reached the air circulation system, The effect was immediate. Hegemony soldiers began stumbling and falling as the aerosol sedative affected their nervous systems. Within seconds, dozens of the reptilian warriors were unconscious on the ground. Commander Vextar, who had been hanging back from the fighting, realized what was happening. He put on a breathing mask and kept advancing toward the humans. "Clever little humans," he hissed, "but it will not save you." That was when the silent runner appeared overhead, like an avenging angel. The ship's cloaking device flickered off as Sarah opened fire with every weapon the ship had. Energy beams and missiles rained down on the fortress courtyard. Sarah's targeting was perfect. She hit every hegemony soldier while avoiding the humans completely. "Ground team, this is your ride," Sarah's voice came over the radio. "Transport in 30 seconds. But Commander Vextar was not finished. The hegemony commander raised his energy rifle and aimed it at Lisa Grant, who was still kneeling next to Ben Carter's stretcher. "If I cannot have victory, I will have revenge," Vextar snarled. Tony Martinez saw what was happening and threw himself in front of Lisa just as Vextar fired. The energy beam hit Tony in the shoulder, spinning him around and knocking him to the ground. Ryan Brooks had one shot left in his weapon. He took careful aim and fired. The energy beam hit Vextar in the chest, and the hegemony commander fell backward onto the stone floor of the courtyard. "Transport now," Ryan shouted into his radio. Beams of light surrounded the humans as the silent runner's transport system pulled them up to the ship. Within seconds, they were standing in the ship's transport room. Safe at last, Dr. Kevin Walsh had been monitoring the mission from Earth, watching through the silent runner's communication link. When he saw that the rescue was successful, he activated the second part of his plan. The frequency modulators that had shut down. Rigel Prime's shields were still broadcasting. But now Kevin changed the frequency to match the hegemony's communication network. Across 3-star systems, hegemony communication arrays began to overload and shut down. Military bases lost contact with their ships. Commanders could not talk to their troops. For 6 hours, the hegemony's military coordination was completely blind. Jake Morrison, still fighting the supply convoy in the Altair system, received word that the rescue was successful. He had been playing cat and mouse with the hegemony ships for an hour, using the asteroid field to avoid their weapons while striking at their cargo vessels. "All right, people, time to go home," Jake announced to his crew. "We've done our job here." But as the Terra's Hope prepared to jump to hyperspace, Jake received another message. This one was from Admiral Hayes herself. "Jake, the rescue team is safe, but we're not done yet. I want you to broadcast a message on all hegemony frequencies. Make sure every alien in this sector hears it." Jake smiled grimly. He had been waiting for this moment since the attack on Kepler Station. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth. Vessel Terra's Hope." He broadcast on every frequency the ship could reach. "This message is for the hegemony and anyone else who thinks humans are weak because we prefer peace." He paused, thinking about Ben Carter, lying injured in a prison cell, and Lisa Grant being struck down while trying to save alien lives. "You stole medicine from dying people. You attacked our personnel during a humanitarian mission. You thought we would accept this because humans avoid violence when possible." The Terra's Hope jumped into hyperspace, leaving the damaged hegemony convoy behind. "You were wrong," Jake continued. "We came to the stars offering friendship, knowledge, and aid. We still offer these things freely. But to those who mistake our generosity for weakness, who prey upon the innocent, or who threaten our people, you have now seen what happens when you cross a human." The message reached every corner of hegemony space and beyond. Within hours, it was being repeated on news broadcasts throughout the galaxy. On the silent runner, Dr. Lisa Grant worked in the ship's medical bay to stabilize Ben Carter and Tony Martinez. Both men were seriously injured, but they would live. "How are they doing?" Ryan Brooks asked as he entered the medical bay. "Ben will need surgery when we get back to Earth, but he's stable," Lisa replied, checking the monitors around Ben's bed. "Tony's shoulder wound is painful, but not life-threatening." Ben Carter opened his eyes slowly. His face was pale, but he managed a weak smile when he saw Ryan. "Did we get the vaccines back?" "We got them back," Ryan confirmed. "And we made sure. The hegemony knows what happens when they attack human medical missions." "Good," Ben whispered, then closed his eyes again. Captain Sarah Johnson's voice came over the ship's communication system. "All hands, prepare for hyperspace jump. We're going home." As the silent runner left hegemony space behind, Ryan Brooks thought about what they had accomplished. They had rescued their people and recovered the stolen vaccines. But more importantly, they had sent a message that would be remembered throughout the galaxy. The hegemony had learned that humans were not the weak, peaceful species they had thought. They had learned that attacking humans came with a price that extended far beyond any single. Battle. Commander Vextar lay in the Fortress Medical Bay on Rigel Prime, recovering from his wounds. The human energy weapon had damaged his. 6 months later, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of Kepler Station and watched ships from dozens of different worlds dock peacefully at the trading hub. The station looked the same as before, but everything had changed. Hegemony warships were gone. In their place were medical vessels from the Galactic Health Organization and cargo ships carrying humanitarian supplies to colonies throughout the sector. A new administration ran the station, one that treated all species with equal respect. Captain Morrison? A voice behind him spoke his name. Jake turned to see a tall, blue-skinned Zephyrian approaching. The alien wore the robes of a medical officer, and his large eyes showed gratitude and respect. "Dr. Velteron," Jake replied, recognizing the chief medical officer of the Zephyrian colonies. "How are your people doing?" "The plague has been completely eliminated," Velteron said with obvious relief. "The vaccines that Dr. Grant created saved over 2 million lives. My people will never forget what humans did for us." Jake nodded. "Lisa will be glad to hear that. She's been working on improvements to the vaccine in case there are any future outbreaks. There is something else," Velteron continued. "The Galactic Commerce Treaty is being revised. The new version includes strict protections for humanitarian missions. Many species are calling it the human clause." Jake smiled. "That sounds like something Lisa would appreciate." In the station's medical bay, Dr. Lisa Grant was training a group of alien doctors in advanced treatment techniques. She had been promoted to head of the new interspecies medical exchange, a position that allowed her to share human medical knowledge with species throughout the galaxy. "The key to treating hegemony scale infections is understanding their calcium metabolism," Lisa explained to her students. "Their scales are not just armor, they're part of their immune system." One of her students, a young hegemony doctor named Sektar, raised his clawed hand. "Dr. Grant, may I ask you something personal?" "Of course," Lisa replied. "Why did you treat Commander Vextar's wounds after the battle at Rigel Prime?" "He had attacked you and stolen your vaccines." Lisa considered the question carefully. It was true that she had insisted on treating Vextar's injuries when the silent runner's medical team had found him wounded in the fortress. Many people had asked her the same question. "Because he was hurt, and I am a doctor," Lisa said simply. "Helping injured people is what I do, regardless of who they are or what they have done." Sektar nodded slowly. "This is why the hegemony leadership has agreed to work with humans on medical research. They say that any species that shows mercy to its enemies must be truly strong." Back on Earth, Admiral Patricia Hayes was meeting with representatives from dozens of alien governments. The conference room was filled with beings of every size, shape, and color imaginable. They had come to discuss new trade agreements and defense treaties with humanity. The proposed Mutual Defense Pact would guarantee that any attack on humanitarian missions will be met with joint military response. Patricia explained to the assembled delegates that Ambassador Fakefair of the hegemony shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The gold and green-scaled alien had taken over leadership of his people after the previous government had been forced to resign in shame. Following the Kepler Station incident, the hegemony agrees to these terms, Fakefair said formally. We have learned that cooperation serves our interests better than conflict. What he did not say, but everyone in the room understood, was that the hegemony had learned not to cross humans. The raid on Rigel Prime had become legendary throughout the galaxy. Military academies used it as an example of perfect special operations. Planning an execution dot in a small apartment in New Geneva, Lieutenant Ben Carter was learning to walk again. The energy weapon blast had damaged his spine, but human medical technology was slowly repairing the injury. His physical therapist, a cheerful woman named Amy Foster, encouraged him as he took careful steps across the room. You're doing great. Ben, Amy said. Dr. Grant says you should be back to full duty within 6 months. Ben smiled. He had received thousands of messages from people throughout human space, calling him a hero for defending Dr. Grant at Kepler Station. But he did not feel like a hero. He had just done what anyone would do, protect someone who could not protect themselves. Any word from Colonel Brooks? Ben asked as he rested between exercises. He sent another message yesterday, Amy replied. The Special Operations training program is going very well. Apparently, every military academy in the galaxy wants to learn human tactics now. Ben laughed. It was ironic that the same species that preferred peace and diplomacy had become the most respected military trainers in the galaxy. But humans had proven something important, that the best warriors were often those who fought only when necessary. Colonel Ryan Brooks was indeed busy training alien military officers in human combat techniques. His base on Mars had become a popular destination for officers from friendly species who wanted to learn how humans had achieved such remarkable success at Rigel Prime. The key to special operations is not superior firepower, Ryan explained, to a class of mixed alien students. It is superior planning, superior training, and superior determination. A Centaurian officer raised her hand. Colonel Brooks, what makes human soldiers so effective in small unit actions? Ryan considered the question. We never leave anyone behind, he said finally. Every human soldier knows that if they fall, their comrades will come for them. That knowledge makes us willing to take risks that other species might consider foolish. Even when the odds are hopeless? Asked a Kepler merchant who was auditing the class. Especially when the odds are hopeless, Ryan replied. Humans have a saying, the difficult we do immediately. The impossible takes a little longer. On Haven Prime, Ambassador Helen Rogers was concluding another successful negotiation. This time, she had helped resolve a trade dispute between the Centaurians and the Kepler merchants. Her reputation as a fair and effective negotiator had grown significantly since the events at Kepler Station. The agreement is acceptable to both parties, Helen announced to the conference room. Trade will resume immediately, and the new shipping routes will benefit both civilizations. After the other delegates had left, Helen stood alone in the conference room and thought about how much had changed. Before the Kepler Station incident, humans had been seen as newcomers to galactic politics, friendly, but not particularly important. Now human diplomats were requested for every major negotiation. Other species had learned that humans combined reasonable negotiating positions with the capability to enforce their agreements. It was a powerful combination. Captain Sarah Johnson was back in command of the Silent Runner, but now her ship had a different mission. Instead of sneaking through enemy territory, she was leading a new program to develop joint military exercises between human and alien forces. The key to successful joint operations is understanding each species' strengths and weaknesses, Sarah explained to a mixed crew of humans and aliens on her bridge. Humans excel at improvisation and small unit tactics. Centaurians are excellent long-range planners. Zephyrians have incredible technical skills. Her first officer, a Centaurian named Kalaneth, nodded agreement. Together, we are stronger than any of us would be alone. Sarah smiled. That had become the unofficial motto of the new Interspecies Defense Force. The organization had been created in direct response to the Kepler Station incident. As dozens of species realized they needed better ways to protect humanitarian missions. An innocent civilian's Dr. Kevin Walsh had also seen his career change dramatically. His discovery of the frequency weakness in hegemony shields had made him famous throughout the galaxy. Now he led a team of human and alien scientists working to develop new defensive technologies. The goal is not to create better weapons, Kevin explained to his research team. The goal is to create better defenses. We want to make it impossible for any military force to attack civilian targets. His latest project was a network of sensor stations that could detect military buildups before they became threats to peaceful colonies. The system would give civilian populations time to evacuate or call for help. Knowledge is the best defense, Kevin told his team. If we know what our enemies are planning, we can stop them before they hurt innocent people. Back at Kepler Station, Jake Morrison was preparing to leave on another mission. The Terra's Hope had been upgraded with new engines and better defensive systems, a reward for the crew's actions during the supply convoy raid in the Altair system. Pete Wilson, now promoted to lieutenant commander, brought the final departure clearance to the bridge. All systems green, Captain. We're ready to depart. Where are we headed this time? Asked Nancy Clark from the pilot's seat. Jake looked at his orders. The Vega colonies are reporting some kind of unusual disease affecting their livestock. They've requested human medical assistance. Nancy smiled. Just like old times. Not quite, Jake replied, looking out at the peaceful station around them. This time, everyone knows that attacking a human medical mission is not a smart idea. As the Terra's Hope departed Kepler Station, Jake thought about all the changes that had occurred since that terrible day 6 months ago. The attack on his people had been meant to show that humans were weak and unimportant.